Abby, the WagerTalk YouTube channel. Slate that is increasingly shrinking, that aren't rained out just yet, and maybe some that might end up getting rained out there. One that we're going to be tracking is obviously that Chicago Cubs game. But while you're here live with us, you have any questions about some of the games that are maybe going off as we might even be here on air or approaching the evening, you can hop in the comments and we'll address as many of that as we can, because we're happy to be here with you live. Dan Alexander here, and joining me, I got Steve Merril. I got Bryan, Leonard breaking down the card with me tonight. And gentlemen, like we said, we're live here. We'll be rolling with the comments here, but I say we start off with a team that might be the shocker of the year. Sure, the shocker of the night last night might have been the Chicago White Sox winning, and maybe that's why the weather is as insane as it is. Yep.
Stand by. Yep. All right, here we go. One more time. Coming in. 3, 2, 1. Back to you. Call the game.
Welcome on back here. Let's talk to the Pittsburgh Pirates, Washington Nationals. As I was saying, sure, the shocker of last night might have been the White Sox causing all this weather today as hell froze over as they won a game against the Bravos. But the real shocker of the year is the Buccos. 5-0, best start for the Pirates since 1983. Bryan, you can almost hear them playing "We Are Family" as the song that they loved when they were actually good back in the day. Is this like fool's gold? What do you think about this matchup here tonight and the start for the perfect Pirates? I'm sure you're as surprised as anyone.
Well, the Pirates came into the season, and you were worried that they were going to leave some of their best players down in the minors. Paul Skeens, they sent back down, but they knew that, is he had very little minor league experience coming into this season. But if you take a look at what they have done, they brought in some veterans. They signed them to minor league contracts. They're trying to make the playoffs this year, and I don't blame them. That's a situation for this team. That is a positive, as we thought the Pirates were going to go over just trying to get the young guys ready for the future. They're coming out to win this year, and I like it. Baseball's better when my favorite ballpark is in Pittsburgh, and they've got a quality team. My concern with them today is Mitch Keller's on the mound. Now, his velocity was down in his first start of the season. In fact, he's one of those guys coming into the year where a lot of people are talking about a big breakout, but there were other people talking about him maybe have peaked already. So we'll see what is happening. He did not look very good in his first start, but we kind of have to take that with a grain of salt. Yesterday, Arizona, Zach Gallen pitched for Arizona, and in his first start, his velocity was down. But you have to keep in mind they had a 14-0 lead in that game, so I could see him just going through the motions the rest of the game, just trying to throw strikes. Unfortunately, Mitch Keller wasn't in that situation the first game. I think there's a little bit of value here on Washington. I'm more of an underdog player anyway, but I like the starting pitcher here for Washington. I think he's better than what they've given him credit for in the past. So I think the betting value here is a little bit on Washington, and who knows? There might be some people that are starting to ride the Pirates. Pirates haven't played a very tough schedule so far, and Washington is not expected to be a contender. But I think we can make some money betting against the Pirates in the near future, because I think they are slightly overrated at this point. But I still think this is a team, as the season goes on, that, hey, they'll fight for the playoffs. I like this Pittsburgh team, but this line's a little bit inflated in my regard.
Yeah, and this is something, if you watch any of the shows that we do here, like our Puck Time show that goes live at 11 Eastern every day here, you can make sure you're subscribed so you never miss that. That's something that Bryan does kind of across sports, is looking at some of these teams that maybe the public perception is all buy signs, and that's where the dog hunter, as we call Bryan Leonard, he can kind of swoop in and find some value there. So something that he kind of uses as his handicapping style. Hop below in the comments, let us know. Are you more dogs? Are you more favorites? We'd love to hear from you down there. But Steve, one of the things that Bryan mentioned there was just maybe the starting pitching edge. And man, the Nats could use that, trying to slow down this Buccos team. 15 hits, 8-run outburst yesterday. So some quality pitching would definitely be a help. Do you see it kind of similar? Or do you think Buccos could potentially continue to roll?
Well, the tricky thing about baseball, especially when we're doing a daily show like this, is it unlike basketball and football, you could say there's value with the team, but if they don't win the game, it doesn't matter. And that's what's so tricky
True.
on a daily basis. That's why, baseball is such a long-term grind. And Bryan will tell you that before anybody else. He likes underdogs, but on a daily basis, he has a less odds of winning than normal because he's taking a plus 140 or plus 130, but he only has to hit in the 40% range. He'll make money during the season. So it's tricky when analyzing one game like this. Pirates will likely win this game. That's why they're minus 140. The Nationals, it could be plus 300 and there'd be tremendous value, but if they lose outright, you'd still lose the bet. So we have to keep that in mind. I do think the Pirates in the near future are going to probably be a little overvalued here with this hot start. The Nationals will be catching some value at some point. But let's keep in mind also the Pirates got off to a fast start last year after the first month or two, and then they fizzled out. And as Bryan said, Miami and Washington, not exactly the toughest teams they'll be facing. Oh, by the way, they have a 3-game series this weekend against once again my Baltimore Orioles as a child. They're a legitimate team. And could the Pirates be the next Orioles? I think it's an interesting discussion. Chime into the live chat. Those of you watching right now, let us know what you think, because it does have some of the makings of what the Orioles went through. The Orioles were a complete bottom feeder for 3 or 4 years, and then we started to see some life the last couple seasons. Some young guys coming up through the minors, and I think the Pirates are heading in that direction. Since Bryan talked about the side, though, I'll look at the total in this game for the show. Both teams have gone over in every game this season. Pittsburgh and Washington now 9-0 combined. They, of course, went over last night with 12 runs. And it's not misleading. The Pirates have put up 9 hits or more in every game. They've had double-digit hits in each of their last 4 games, and they've put up 6 runs or more in all 5 games. So their offense is in great current form. Nationals are actually hitting the ball a little bit better than people realize. After the opening day, just 2-run performance, they've put up a total of 16 runs in their last 3 games, and they've had 8 hits or more in each of those games. So I think offense is going to be at worth a look here, and we'll check where this line has moved. It opened 9 to the under, and it actually dropped 8.5 in some spots, 9 under 20, but 8.5 over 20 in others. 9 is a very key number, so if you are going to look at the over here, make sure you get that 8.5 and shop around.
Talking total and side there in the Pirates and the Nats game. And that one, it looks like weather shouldn't be an issue. It looks like there's a decent window where the game is already scheduled, but, that could change in an instant. So that one still scheduled to go on as expected. We'll swing over here to the Rockies and Cubs. And folks, you can hop below in the comments. We'll address some of your questions as we go on through here on the live stream. If you're watching on the rewatch, also hop below and let us know what your best bets are this evening. We love chopping it up with you down there, whether you're watching live with us on the WagerTalk YouTube channel or you're watching on the rewatch. We appreciate you tuning in, and make sure you hit that subscribe button. Throw us a like for the efforts the gentlemen are dropping here. But Rockies, Cubs, Bri, we talked about dogs. Talk about a stinky dog here, man. I mean, the Cubs are up to over 2-1 favorites in some spots as the Rockies continue. It was a close one yesterday, man. It was a 12-2 game yesterday. And talk about this being a spring sport, Bryan. We had temperatures in the 30s as these two were going off, but the bats, they stayed hot for the Cubos at home. If this one does go off, it looks like this one might be touch or go. Chicago White Sox, for what it's worth, they did postpone. This one not scheduled till after 7 o'clock, so it's something to track. But as far as this game goes, I mean, this even has to be too smelly of a dog for you, right, Bri?
Yeah, I'm not big on the Colorado Rockies anyway, and they're giving up double digits in a lot of these games, and they're not even playing in Colorado yet. There are certain teams that give up a lot of runs on a daily basis, and that really hurts your bullpen. And when you're on the road, you're already playing at an offensive disadvantage because they don't have really a lot of hitters on that Colorado team. If you take a look at their home road dichotomy, at home, they hit well. On the road, they hit terribly. If any team would play in Colorado on a daily basis, they'd hit really well at home. So Colorado's a team I'm looking to fade. Luke Little is going to he's going to be the opener tonight if they do play this game for Chicago. The last 2 years, he's gotten into 9 games. He's only pitched 8.2 innings, so he's a short inning guy. He'll come in. He'll probably pitch the first. They may even give him the second because they are playing Colorado here. But it's a situation for me that, number one, we've got the rain out that we need to worry about. Also, I don't want any part of Colorado. And thirdly, I don't want to lay a big number here with the Cubs. The Cubs are a pretty good team. They're a fringe playoff team. But the reason why they're laying so much is because they're playing Colorado. This is a game I'd rather pass on than be stuck with a $2 favorite in a game that I really don't have that big of confidence in the Chicago Cubs here.
Yeah, 2-1 favorites in 30-degree weather where we might see snow in a baseball game. I'm kind of with you, Bryan. It's not hard to talk me into a pass. Steve, do you have any stronger feelings on this Rockies and Cubs game, or is it same as you? Odds makers, they post a line on every game. That doesn't mean we have to bet every single game. That's one of our best tools as bettors. Is that how you view this one?
Well, I do think a good strategy in baseball in general is to try to figure out, just avoid these really bad teams. And Teddy had a good big game breakdown on WagerTalk today, yesterday. He was using the Red Sox over the A's, and I thought it was interesting because on Monday when you and I did this show, Dan, you'll remember I used the Red Sox over the A's on the show Monday, and I mentioned in a focus spot, it was the first of the road series in Oakland. I didn't think Boston would overlook the worst team in baseball. And Oakland was also a terrible home team last year. Now, that's the opposite with the Rockies because the Rockies have a very unique home field advantage. As Bryan said, their home road splits, their home road dichotomies as extreme as any team in the league. We see that with the Utah Jazz this year in basketball as well. Utah's been much stronger at home, even though they're a terrible team. They build that roster also for the altitude. They get pitchers that aren't fly ball pitchers. They want ground ball pitchers. They get hitters that can play there. So, yeah, Colorado, you have to look at their road numbers when the season goes on offensively because their numbers are going to be inflated at home. Hardly ever a time I'm looking to take them on the road. With that said, though, the worst team in baseball, and Rockies will be one of them, is going to still win more than 50 games. And that's still 110, 112 losses if they do so. Of those 50 games, they're going to still win at least 20 road games probably. So if there was a spot in which the Rockies might sneak in, it's probably in this weather uncertainty, this cold weather, this ugly setup tonight could make the Dogs somewhat live. And by the way, at plus 170, you could be a 102-loss team. So they'd have to win 60 games to have fair value at that line. The Cubs, meanwhile, at minus 200, minus 205, would have to win 109 games to break even at that price. Now, granted, they're not playing teams as bad as the Rockies are playing tougher teams, but still, I don't feel like the Cubs are a 109-win team. So that kind of puts into perspective how pricey this line is with all that uncertainty tonight.
Guys, we're going to get into the Blue Jays and Astros here in just a few moments, but first we have some comments here coming in. We'll start with an Instagram comment. We had the Chris Dudas chiming in just saying, what the hell are the Marlins doing? So I don't know if he was referencing that game's live right now as we're on air. I don't know if he was referencing the error that led to the double that dropped them down 4-0, or if he's just referencing the fact that they're 6-0. So Bryan, basically, the Marlins are doing what the Marlins do best.
0-6.
Yeah, 0-6. Sorry about that. Yeah. Yeah, that would be even crazier than them being 0-6. But really, I feel like the answer is that the Marlins are being the Marlins to start the year here. No, guys?
Well, from a pitching staff, they're missing a lot of their starters. AJ Puck's going today. They just scored 4-2. But AJ Puck was a guy who they tried last year as a closer. Now they wanted to stretch him out, and I don't blame him. He's a very good starter when he's healthy, but you have that occurrence where he's not used to throwing this many innings. There was a lot of debate coming into the season if that was the right move. After 2 starts, it's not, but you can't give up on somebody after 2 starts. But the Mariners traded away some pretty good hitters in the offseason, didn't really bring a whole lot in. The Mariners are going to win games by low-scoring games, and that's because their pitching staff is so good. But they've got so many starters right now that are hurt. You can't judge them now on what's going to happen later on in the season. But I'll be honest with you. They've been a disappointment. I played them earlier today in this game. I thought they were going to come out with a better effort, especially for Puck. But he has not pitched any better, and they've got some things to worry about until they get some of these starters back.
Yeah, I don't know, Steve. Do you have anything more to add as far as the Marlins are concerned? If not, I have a question here just regarding one of the more popular bets here is or popular bets, I guess, for younger bettors especially, is the Yerfies and the Nerfies, the yes run first inning and the no run first inning. Is that something, Steve, that you've added to your portfolio? Is that more novelty stuff for you? If there's an edge there, just as far as an overwhelming concept of the yes and no runs in the first inning, do you find that something that you're able to find value on, or do you think it's more just a fun, hey, let me get my action quick, that seems to be rising here in the sports betting world?
Well, yeah, and that's definitely the rising, all these same game parlays, all the end game betting, right? And the attention span of the youth as it is, as you know, is 15 seconds. For someone that just coached a basketball clinic this morning, I can tell you that firsthand. But I do think that's a little bit of a novelty bet. I'll let Bryan chime in on it because I don't mess much with it, but I know guys in the industry do quite well with it. I think what you want to look for in that situation is, first of all, you want to think that starting pitcher is going to be on that day, right? But it's tricky because they're facing the heart of the lineup, right? So there are more likely going to be some runs in the first inning because the heart of the lineup, the 1, 2, 3, 4 hitters are coming up. But then again, that starter should be on his A game if he comes out right. But real quick on the Marlins, they were a play-on team for me last season because if you recall, the year before in 2022, they had one of the worst one-run loss records in baseball. They were 24-40 in one-run games, and I just kind of felt like that was going to come back down to earth. They were 69-93, and what happens last year? They overachieved. They make the playoffs as a wild card team at 84-78, but they were minus 57 net runs, which means they should have been 75-87. So they were actually probably the most overrated team last year. Now out of the gate, they're 0-6. So does look like maybe the Marlins are a fade team, and we've seen this movie before in Florida 20-some years ago when they sold off after that World Series. It just seems like they can't get things right down with that organization.
Well, and Steve, the Miami Marlins might be a fade team moving forward, but we had one person chiming in on YouTube Shorts. Either you guys, like Bryan said, they just scored 2 runs. You know, one of the joys of being live here on the air while some of these games are going on. Question in the chat, like, are the Miami Marlins a live bet right now, or is this just, hey, they finally got 2 runs across? That tickle your guys' twine at all?
I don't have anything to say about it because I'm doing the show. I'm not watching the game. I don't want to look at actual stats because you don't know how the stats were accumulated. But I will say when it comes down to the first inning bets, there's certain pitchers who they've said for years, if you don't get them early, you don't get them at all. And I think Roger Clemens might have been one of those coming off the top of my head. There's certain pitchers that struggle when they start the game, and those are the teams I would like to fade. But anytime a game goes longer, the better team has a better chance of winning, which is why, you know, we talked a little bit about in the Colorado, and you talked about him as a 180, that kind of thing. I went back and I researched. I did much better by playing underdogs in a smaller range because the game, as it takes longer, the better team has got more, chances to come back into the game. And I struggled in those. And that's something you have to take a look at in your off season to go back and chart all of your bets. So, which is why a lot of guys, I know Dave Koken's a big fan of the first 5 innings. Anytime it's a shorter period of time, the underdogs have a better chance to win, which makes the first inning something I look for underdogs. And usually if you get a dominant starting pitcher in the first inning, people just assume they're not going to give up a run. But as you said, they're playing the heart of the lineup. And that's a situation for myself that I like the underdogs in that first inning because they only have to win in 1 inning as opposed to being ahead after 9. So it's very good if you're an underdog player to be able to play those first inning bets.
I love it. Great breakdown there and great question in the live chat. You can continue to drop them in, whether you're watching us live on YouTube, you're watching us on YouTube Shorts, Twitter. We're over on Instagram as well. That's right. If you have social, you can find WagerTalk at WagerTalk. Check us out. And if you're here on YouTube, we appreciate you subscribing and telling folks about the channel as well. So keep those comments coming. But boys, let's switch on over to a game that we know will be played, and that's the Blue Jays and the Astros. Steve, man, new year, same woes, it seems like, for this Blue Jays team. Yes, they did enough to win yesterday, but it's just insanely talented roster that just has insanely inconsistent production is what it seems like the moniker of the Blue Jays is. So it looks like Bassett versus Javier in this one. How are you looking to bet it, Steve?
I talked about the Orioles earlier, how they were so bad a few years ago. Now they become a contender. Let's not forget just a decade ago, the Houston Astros, maybe 12 years ago, were the worst team in baseball for a couple seasons, 2 or 3 years. And then they became a powerhouse, and maybe there was some shenanigans and some cheating going on. But they've been really good for the last decade now. You do have to wonder at what point that organization starts to turn back around. And are we maybe starting to see that? And the reason I say that is when they won the World Series a couple years ago, that bullpen was lights out. That has not been the case in their first 6 games. 7.4 ERA, a 1.94 whip after 6 games so far. They've given up 16 runs, 14 earned in just 17 innings of work, 21 hits. Now, I know that's a small sample size, but this team is still surprisingly 1-5 just straight up to start the season, and all those games have been at home on top of that. Now, the Astros have been a really good road team in recent years, so when they go to Texas, go to Kansas City next week, we'll see what happens. And yes, they opened up with the Yankees and now the Blue Jays, 2 playoff caliber teams. But you do have to worry about that bullpen. Until I see otherwise, I'd be very careful with Houston because you're obviously going to be paying a premium to back them on a nightly basis. And for a team that might be on the downside swing of the career that they've had over the last decade, careful with them going forward. Toronto has been very inconsistent this year, as you mentioned, Dan. They've actually scored 2 runs or less in 4 of their 6 games, but they put up 17 runs in those other 2 games. And that's why they're 3-3 straight up. So 2 teams are kind of difficult to get a feel for right now. But big picture, I'm keeping a close eye on Houston. I need to see them turn things around, especially from that bullpen.
Yeah, and just, with you think about the offseason acquisitions that they had, maybe it's a feeling out process here early in the year, but you have to think with the pedigree that the Stros have, it's going to turn, and when it turns, that might be the buy sign that we need to see. I know our producer behind the scenes, Robert, is just waiting for the Astros to get back to being the Astros. How are you looking to bet this one, Bryan? Is this another one that maybe piques your interest, or is this just another one where you're saying, hey, we have 4 games that we're looking at, we got all these rainouts. Are you finding any value on the board in this one?
I would play the Astros. The only problem is Josh Hader has pitched in 4 of the 6 games, and he is an elite closer, and he has not been elite at all so far this season. Ryan Presley's been fine. Bryan Abreu's been great. Problem is he came back from a suspension, and he hasn't looked good since the suspension. So as the season goes on, this will be one of the most dominant back ends in Major League Baseball. But right now, they're not playing well. And when you get starters that have been struggling, that is a concern. Now, I will point out that Christian Javier, in his first start, he looked really good. His hard hit percentage was only 12.5, exit velocity 85.3. Now, compare that to Chris Bassett, who did not have the same success coming out. His hard percentage is 53.3. Exit velocity of 91.3. Bassett's a guy that's going to give you a lot of innings. He doesn't give you a ton of quality innings. But going against this Houston lineup, I think he will struggle. But with the way the back end of this bullpen is for Houston, I'm not going to trust him to lay that number as a favorite. So I'll be sitting this one out.
Yeah, it's as simple as that. And hop below in the comments if you're eyeing to bet this one. We'd love to hear from you while you're down there. Make sure you hit the like button. And guys, make sure you check these guys out over at WagerTalk.com. You can always go to WT.buzz/deals to see what kind of great savings are going on there. Before we get into this Giants and Dodgers game, Bryan, let people know what you got rocking this evening.
Yeah, I've got 2 plays up on the evening card. You can get both those plays for $19. Also have another nice winner in the NHL. Number 1 all-time in NHL profit. Had a big 4% last night on our local team, the Vegas Golden Knights. And they just came out on fire. So that was a wire-to-wire winner. I expect the same out of our hockey game tonight. So that's available up on the site right now. Looking at this game, when we take a look at the San Francisco contest here, excuse me. San Francisco over the years has played the Dodgers very tight. And so I usually could find some value on San Francisco. Unfortunately, they didn't have that yesterday. They have an elite closer in Duvall. He has not pitched in any of the last 3 games. So that is something that really gives them an advantage here. And the Rogers brothers, Tyler and Taylor, playing for San Francisco, the back end of that bullpen, they've each only pitched once in the last 3 games. So I really like the San Francisco situation in this one. Starting the starters in this one. Harrison, I like him, but he's had control problems in the past. He's a very good young pitcher, pitched great his first time out. Let's just say if you have him in fantasy baseball, I wouldn't start him against this Dodgers lineup, pitching at home.
Yep.
Glasnow's going. This will be his third start. This is the number one starter. It's his third start. When we saw yesterday, there were teams still playing their fifth starter. So because of the situation in Korea, the Dodgers have an advantage, and obviously San Diego does too, that they get to come back with a number 1 and 2 starters earlier. That'll make a difference as the season goes on. That'll put them up in getting at least one more start before the year is over. I like the Dodgers as a hitting team, but San Francisco in the back end, I like that also. So what I'm looking to do here is I'm hoping the Dodgers get out to a sizable lead for the first half, and I could look at playing San Francisco. Let's say the Dodgers lead by 2 in that range. I could get a chance to play San Francisco's back end of the bullpen, because even if they're not winning this game, just to get their back of the bullpen in the game, I would expect them to pitch in this contest. So we're going to get at least 2 out of their 3 best players here, regardless of what the score is in this game. If I can play San Francisco the second half of this game at a nice underdog price, that's what I'll be looking to do.
Yeah, and I love the way that you break that down as well, because it's kind of, you obviously come in with your thoughts of what could potentially be happening pre-flop, thanks to the research that you do, the numbers that you look at, the handicap that you arrive at. And then instead of being so rigid and saying, this is how the game is going to go, it allows you to have some flexibility as far as live betting goes. And if you're managing your bankroll, live betting can be a terrific tool when you're not chasing, when you're trying to adjust what you're seeing with your eyes and how it works into the way that you handicap the game. Love that approach, Bryan, and love that breakdown. It's a great tip on maybe how people could bet these games moving forward. Let us know. Are you live bettors? Let us know in the chat. Do you like attacking live? And if so, do you have any strategies that you use to do so? Steve, your thoughts on this game, man? I mean, Harrison for the San Francisco side has quite the tall task. As Bryan said, it's hard not to like this Dodgers as a hitting team. 5 runs or more in every single game. Is this like the night that it finally slows down? Or, as Bryan kind of said, does it not really matter if it slows down? Could San Francisco have enough to, punch back against the Dodgers, so to speak, in this one? And also let people know what you have rocking tonight at WagerTalk.com.
Yeah, first of all, for the live viewers right now, I do have a late afternoon free play, which goes in about 1 hour for Major League Baseball. Late afternoon free play today for Wednesday. So go get that on my page, completely free with analysis, Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com. And while you're there, check out my top baseball best bet. My one official client release is on the nighttime card. It will not be rained out tonight, so you can get that play right now, along with an advanced Final Four best bet. My favorite play of the Final Four is available right now, so you can lock in and shop around for the best number. And oh, by the way, speaking of the Final Four, I did preview videos for both matchups here on Wager Talk TV yesterday. So check those out. Hit subscribe and hit the bell as well, so you know when my additional Fade the Public video goes up this Friday for the Final Four. So NCAA Major League Baseball best bets for Wednesday and a bonus free play right now. Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com. Yesterday on Wager Talk TV, on Wager Talk Today, I gave out the over in this Giants-Dodgers game on Tuesday night as a free play. I said 8.5 is a pretty low number. It's below that key number of 9. When we get the Dodgers in that price range, it's worth a look. Well, it landed right on 9. It cashed. I also mentioned that was going to be maybe the cheapest price we saw in the Dodgers all season as a home favorite, around minus 140, and they got it done there as well. I do think the value is probably with San Francisco in this game tonight. Giants, by the way, have gone over in all 6 games this season. And just like the Astros, their bullpen numbers have not been good. So they are going to have to get their better relievers into this game, because overall, a terrible bullpen so far to start the season. 8.1 ERA, giving up 20 runs in just over 22 innings of work. So that's been their Achilles heel. But their offense has been getting it done, averaging over 5 runs a game and with 6 straight overs. Yet we've seen some sharp money coming on the under in this game. It's 8.5, and it's now juiced under 20. So staying off this game tonight, I do think perhaps the Giants could be a live dog. But as I've always said, if you're going to play the Dodgers, you don't lay minus 240. You play the run line, get it down to minus 110. You can get a minus 240 favorite down to pick them by playing the 1.5. And I know they only won by 1 last night, but keep in mind they were only a minus 140 favorite. You didn't need the run line last night. Otherwise, it's cashed every game but 1 that they've won this season. And the 2 that they've lost outright, they've lost by margin. So it's either the Giants plus 200 or the Dodgers minus 1.5, minus 110. Those are the ways to play this game, depending on which side you like.
Yeah, and we have Josiah Queen hopping in the chat saying Dodgers going to crush that 4.5 team total over again. Steve, you kind of mentioned there, with some money potentially looking towards the under, maybe the market doesn't think so. I know either of you have any thoughts on that team total as far as it goes. I mean, Joe Ranieri would say
there
if it
ain't
ain't
no to
broke,
the
don't
over
fix
this
it.
season. Yeah, 5 runs or more in all 8 games this year, so it'd be over or pass. I do think this could be more of an under game for some of the reasons Bryan mentioned as well. But I'm definitely not jumping on a Dodgers team total under anytime soon.
Bryan, any thoughts on this team total? I mean, like Joe says all the time, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Steve says don't catch a falling knife.
It's a
sometimes
speeding
that
bullet.
easy.
This is the opposite. This is don't get in front of a speeding bullet. The opposite of a falling knife. Exactly right.
Yeah, this is set up pretty much where I expected it to be. I'm not seeing a lot of value. I agree with Steve that I wouldn't take the under, but I don't know if I would get there with the over. Harrison has the ability, and he's pitched very well since he was called up. In the minors, like I said, he walked a lot of players. He hadn't done that in the majors very much. He has been good, and if he could get 4 good innings against this Dodgers lineup, you may have problems. Because as I mentioned, I do expect them to use that back end of the bullpen. Steve mentioned the Giants' struggles in the bullpen, but those have all been the guys that are coming in for the long relief. So the guys at the back end haven't had a lot of pitches thrown so far this season.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Guys, we're going to be shutting it down here in just a few. If you have any questions that you want to get in, hop in the chat and let us know now. If you're watching on the replay, let us know what your best bets are going to be this evening and how much you love, seeing the rain. Little Creedence Clearwater Revival style, guys. I want to know if you've ever seen the rain. We're all seeing it today. All these damn games we want to bet being canceled. But Steve, before we sign off here, we have one question specifically for you, talking about last year, a really profitable spot for you. We got To the Bank asking, last year, Steve, you were money on with the Rangers, betting on teams with heavy lefties. So how do you think teams are adjusting to the no shift? Is that still an edge for the lefties? That a question from To the Bank. We appreciate you tuning in here, man.
Yeah, it's a great question. And first of all, I love the CCR reference. Big Lebowski. Wouldn't count on getting back to Creedence. That's a great movie right there for anyone who hasn't seen it. But you got to watch about 5 times to get really good. Last year was the first year with the no shift. Of course, you couldn't put – and keep in mind, the reason the shift worked, they were doing it 90% of the time against left-handed hitters. They would move all those guys over to the right side of the infield. Can't do that anymore. I thought left-handed dominant lineups, especially like the Rangers, would benefit. Obviously, the Rangers are probably the biggest overachiever last year compared to the year before. Marlins as well. Diamondbacks as well benefited. So I do think maybe some of those teams won't be quite as of surprise this year as teams have started to adjust. But yeah, I think teams that maybe have struggled in recent years with heavy lefty lineups, and last year was the D-backs and the Rangers for me, and they both were probably the 2 biggest overachievers in both leagues. Maybe something to keep an eye on still, but it won't be as good as it was last season. It's already been kind of factored in.
That's Steve Merril, WT.buzz/SM. Check out Bryan as well, WT.buzz/BL. Man, it was fun being back here live with the folks. Love when we get to chop it up with you in the chat. We appreciate your questions all show long, whether you've been tuning in, you're subscribed here to the YouTube TV channel, or you joined us on Instagram, Twitter, wherever you were watching. We greatly appreciate it. Check these guys out tonight. Cash in with them with the big savings over at WagerTalk. And we will be back tomorrow, whether we're live or not. Well, you want to make sure you hit that bell, get those notifications so you never miss when we go live here or when any of our great solo game videos are posted, like both of these gentlemen are doing on a nearly daily basis. Big thanks to Bryan. Big thanks to Steve. Big thanks to Rob, doing a terrific job behind the scenes. Hey, folks. If you want more betting content, you don't have to go far. You can click the video on your screen right here, and then you'll be ready to bet all the sports you love, getting all the info you need. That's what we do here at WagerTalk TV. Best of luck, everyone. We'll see you next time on First Pitch.